Hi, Christian nerds. Today, I want to give you my review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we'll get to that right after this. I've been using Coinbase.com and the Coinbase app for cryptocurrency for about 2 years now, which makes it really easy and safe to buy, sell, and store digital currency like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Sign up now and use my link at christiannerdsunite.com/Coinbase and get $10 of free Bitcoin when you buy or sell at least $100 worth of digital currency. Join 43 million other people who buy, sell, and manage their crypto on the world's most trusted crypto exchange. Check it out at christiannerdsunite.com/Coinbase. And now, back to the show. Today, I'm going to give you my spoiler-filled review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier from Marvel and Disney+. But first, as usual, I want to share a few scriptures. We're going to start out with Romans 10:12. For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all, and richly blesses all who call on him. Deuteronomy 10:17 through 19. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widows, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. And Acts 10:34 through 35. Then Peter began to speak. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right. So a lot of you, like me, have been into the Disney Plus Marvel shows that have been playing lately. And just this past Friday, we saw the wrap up of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I'm super excited to talk about it. I absolutely loved the show. Now, a few weeks ago, you might check out the podcast where I talked a little bit about John Walker and Baron Zemo and why Marvel really wanted you to hate John Walker and to really like Zemo. They even gave Zemo a dance moment. I mean, if you look on the Marvel YouTube channel, they have an hour-long version of Zemo dancing to some EDM music. It is insane. And they gave John Walker a temper and just the perfect design for him to not be liked in general. So they did a great job on these characters, and they definitely wanted you to like Zemo and not like John Walker. But today I want to focus more on the big story, the overall arc, and we have two major characters. They're the title characters. We've got Sam Wilson as Falcon, and we've got Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier, played by Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, respectively. We've got these two characters that are struggling with the world around them and how they fit in now because things are different than they used to be. Now, we also have a lot of other characters. I'm going to come back to Sam and Bucky here in just a few minutes, but just to get through some of the other characters that I was super excited that we were able to see. We were able to see the Dora Milaje, the Wakandan female warriors. We saw Florence Kasumba as Ao come in, and she is just so impressive on screen. One of my absolute favorite UFC fighters ever. We get to see George St. Pierre reprise his role as Batroc, which Batroc the Leaper, if you're familiar with him in the comics. And I thought he did an amazing job in that character. I already gave you the spoiler warning earlier. This is a big spoiler. Batroc does die in this last episode, which kind of makes me sad. I was really hoping they were going to be able to keep George St. Pierre around and use him kind of as a recurring bit part villain that they could just kind of feed in whenever they needed somebody. I think it would have been great. He just had a great presence on screen. Did an amazing job. We saw another character that we just barely saw. It was played by Elijah Richardson, and it was Eli Bradley. It was the grandson of Isaiah Bradley in the show. He comes to the door and he's kind of protective of his grandfather, running people off kind of thing. And why do I even bring him up? Well, in the comics, he's actually important. In the comics, he later becomes a superhero named Patriot, which is a Captain of America kind of character, and he plays in a part of the Young Avengers. So we've got another Young Avenger possibility that we could see come out. I don't know that we're going to go there. I don't think we'll see Patriot. I don't think we'll see Eli Bradley in the Young Avengers, but he does exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, so it's a possibility. Kind of the big surprise for everybody was seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus show up as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. And, if you're not familiar with that character, she's kind of been a lot of different things. At one point, she was a Russian spy. She worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. She worked for the government. She was, Madam Hydra. It's super unclear as to what her real position is in the show, but it definitely does appear that she is going to be some kind of recurring character. Rumor already has it that she will be in the Black Widow movie, and she was supposed to have shown up in that first because Black Widow should have come out in 2020, and it will be releasing in not too the distant future. If you are interested in Black Widow, you can see it in theaters when it comes out. You'll also be able to see it on Disney Plus Premier Access if you want to pay the extra fee and don't want to go to the theaters. So that's something to look forward to coming up very, very soon. And hopefully we get to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus one more time, at least there. And I think we're going to see more of her later. And we'll get into that here in just a few moments, at least a little bit more. We did see Carly Morgenthau, who is kind of the bad guy for the show. She has a good reason for her evil. She wants to help these refugees. She wants to help these people, but the way she goes about it is just destructive and doesn't serve her cause as much as she seems to think it will. And that is an interesting story when we go into it. When we look at Carly, her whole story arc is kind of, I'm helping people. Okay, I'm going to do some bad things. We're going to steal some things because we're going to help people. And then later it becomes, I'm going to blow up some things and I might hurt people or kill people because I want to bring attention to what's going on. And, eventually we see her interact with Sam, and Sam trying to talk her off the ledge. The show even hints a couple of times that her team of other flag smashers is not quite on board with the way Carly is acting. But for some reason, Marvel decided not to go there. They decided not to have the team have that infighting. They just kind of hinted at it. And I'm a little disappointed that Marvel didn't go there. I think it would have been a great way to kind of gin up the issue between Carly and some of her subordinates. We saw Baron Zemo, which we've already mentioned. Daniel Bruhl did an amazing job once again playing Baron Zemo. I did absolutely love that they kept his character very consistent. From the very get-go of the show, his deal was no more super soldiers. We don't need them. We don't want them. There was a moment in the show, and many, many people talked about it, that he picks up a vial of super soldier serum, and he has the opportunity to use it. But rather than using it, he grins and destroys it. And he destroys every vial that he can find. I do really appreciate that Marvel decided to keep him very consistent. It would have almost broken his character. It would have messed up his story arc if he had suddenly become a super soldier and taken advantage of that rather than sticking to what he believes. Even if he's the bad guy, at least he stuck with what he believed, which was that no super soldiers should exist. Now, we see another character that we think is on the side of good, and we see a major heel turn. Sharon Carter herself. Emily Van Camp once again plays this character absolutely spot on, and she does a great job. There were lots of hints that she was going to be the power broker. There is a kind of an unspoken rule that they talk about where villains can't use iPhones, which I think is hysterical. But, because, I use an iPhone, so that means I'm not a villain. Even though I've got the villainy goatee going on. So we definitely see Sharon have, I don't know if it's even a heel turn. She just is a bad guy in all reality. Now, there's still conjecture, is she kind of a bad guy? Is she a double agent? Is something else going on? As the show proceeds, and in the very last episode, we do have a post-credit scene with her getting her pardon from the U.S. government and basically being offered her old job, and then her turning around and saying, I'm going to have access to lots of secrets, line up the buyers. So, not sure where we're going with that, but it definitely is something to keep an eye on. I think it will be interesting in the future. Then we have another character, a new character that we run into in the MCU, which is Isaiah Bradley. Isaiah Bradley has an amazing story, and he did exist in the comics. Isaiah Bradley was technically, if you look at the dating, if you go by not when the comics were released, but when the comics were supposed to have happened, Isaiah Bradley would technically be the first African-American Captain America. In the comic series, there's 300 African Americans that are brought in. They are tested on medically, and they are given super soldier serum, and Isaiah Bradley is the only one who survives. It's wartime, and he basically breaks in and steals the Captain America costume and shield, and he goes overseas and he fights as Captain America. And when he comes back, he is arrested for it, for stealing the mantle of Captain America, and is held in prison for 30 years and experimented on, trying to figure out how they can get this super serum to work on other people. It's a tragic and very Interesting storyline. Definitely check it out in the comic books. They do allude to all of that in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. And in the end, we do see him get his final recognition. We do see him get a statue in the Captain America Museum, basically saying, this is who Isaiah Bradley is. This is why he's important. This is why you should know who he is. And it's a great moment in the show. It's right at the end of the last episode. It definitely is something to take a look at. So then we have Wyatt Russell as John Walker. Wyatt Russell does an amazing job here. We see him as John Walker. We see this, early on, we see Walker with this idea of, I don't know if I can really go through with this. And then we see him, convinced that he can do this. And, we really even see two heel turns from John Walker. We see him go from I'm trying to be the ultra good guy to being the vengeful bad guy, to coming back to a heroic end. So from the very start, I always wanted to see John Walker get some kind of redemption arc. And I definitely feel like we got that. And we'll get into a little more of that here after we talk more about Sam and Bucky. So let's look at Falcon. Falcon, Sam Wilson and, we're talking about Anthony Mackie did an amazing job. Now, I will be the first to say I was wrong. I was concerned that Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, neither one could stand up to a solo Captain America movie. That was a big concern of mine. I wasn't sure how that was going to work out. Both of them are great actors. I just didn't think they had the presence that Chris Evans had. So I wasn't sure if a standalone Captain America movie was going to work. Now, using the two together as a odd couple buddy cop kind of thing worked so well. I was pleasantly surprised. And honestly, at the end of this, I feel like either one of these characters definitely could hold their own in a standalone movie. I would love to see a Winter Soldier movie. I would love to see a Captain America led by Anthony Mackie movie, which that's kind of what we're hearing. We're hearing the showrunner from Falcon and the Winter Soldier is now set up as the producer for a Captain America 4. So the assumption is we will see Anthony Mackie step in to the Captain America role as a MCU movie. So we'll see how that plays out. I kind of hope it's a Captain America and the Winter Soldier movie. I want to see these two work together again. It would be brilliant. Now, Falcon. Falcon is an interesting character. I've always loved the Falcon. And I was reading comic books in the 70s. Let me just be clear. So I didn't remember Falcon when he first came out, but by the time I was reading comic books, Falcon was a major character. He was a major Avenger. He and Captain America were partners in comic books. So I got used to seeing Falcon in a lot of different situations. Technically, he is considered the first African-American superhero, September 1969. Now, some will go, well, what about Black Panther? Okay, Black Panther was, as far as Marvel is concerned, the first black superhero. But Falcon is technically the first African-American superhero. It's a slight distinction and difference. We've got Black Panther, who is an African superhero, and we have Falcon, who is technically an African-American superhero. Also, another little tidbit from what research I found was he is technically the first black superhero to not have the word black in his name. So that is definitely something that is kind of interesting. Marvel was definitely more progressive than a lot of different comic companies were at the time. Stan Lee did things that other comic books would never have thought to do. And, Falcon is no exception. I think Anthony Mackie nailed this character. He has a better story arc here than he's had in any other films that he's been in. This definitely shows that he has the chops to be able to be an actor in his own right and really lead in the MCU. Now, the storyline, it's a really great storyline. We see Sam feeling inadequate to hold the shield. I can't live up to who Steve Rogers was. And basically he puts the shield down. And he turns it in. The government says, you made the right decision. And we definitely know that is a conflict between he and Bucky. Now we've got Walker, John Walker, who at the very beginning also doesn't quite feel like he can live up to the mantle of Steve Rogers. But he picks up the shield anyway. Now, that's where things are a little different between Sam and John. Sam feels inadequate, but he feels like he shouldn't be it. But in the end, he realizes he has to. John Walker feels initially like he doesn't deserve this. John Walker feels like he can't stay. Initially, John Walker feels like he can't do this because he's not a super soldier. But he tries to do it anyway. And once he's a super soldier, he decides he deserves it. So huge difference between these two characters and how they treat the idea of being Captain America. Then we have Bucky. And Bucky never wants to be Captain America, never feels called to be Captain America. But he definitely feels like Sam should be. This is actually one of the best moments in the whole show, is when Bucky, this is a rough quote, he tells Sam, you put down the shield. If Steve was wrong about you, maybe he was wrong about me too. And that is where Bucky is in his brain. He feels like he is inadequate. He feels like he is not a good person because of everything he's been through. He still feels like he is the horrible person that the Winter Soldier was and not the new man that he is. And that's what we see his story arc throughout this entire show. We see him go from this dark place to finally coming to grips with who he is and what he has done. We see him trying to make amends, and we see Sam calling him out and say, you're not making amends, you're avenging. Make amends, you have to do something. You have to do something for people. And we do see him make his final amends at the end of the season, and it's kind of a heart-wrenching moment. And I think they handled it pretty well. They handle it in such a way that we don't see everything that went on, but we see enough of what happened to know that he did definitely, make amends, and he is a different person than when the show started. Going back to Sam, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place today, but it's such a great show, and there's so many little different parts that went through it. Sam finally does pick up the mantle of Captain America, and that's an interesting thing. If we look at the Falcon wings going back, it's kind of assumed that they are Stark technology. Early on, they are some kind of Stark technology. But we see him get a new costume. We see him get new wings that are now Wakandan, and they are presumably vibranium now. And we see the Falcon pick up the mantle of Captain America. Someone even says, "Hey, look," they call him, it's the Black Falcon. Now, mind you, he was never called the Black Falcon in the comic books, so it's kind of interesting. He gets called that a couple of different times in the show, but he's never called that in the comics. So we see him called, somebody says, "Hey, it's the Black Falcon," and somebody says, no, that's Captain America. To the point of, there are people that have accepted him as the new Captain America, knowing that John Walker is not the right guy. As we see John Walker fail tragically, taking a life that never should have happened. It's a crazy scene in the middle of the season, and we definitely see that John Walker has just completely lost it, and we're not sure if he's ever going to get it back. What we see Sam finally take up the mantle. We see him take on super soldiers, even though he isn't one. We see him have a major battle with Carly. And my favorite part of this battle is where Carly is just bashing him and the shield and saying, "Fight back." And Sam just says, "I'm not going to fight you." Still trying to get to Carly to say, "Carly, you're doing this the wrong way. There's a different way to do this." In the end, we see Sam, win the battles. We see Sam in a whole new light. And finally, we see Sam step up to the GRC and to the government and say, basically calling them out that they can do better. And it's a moment where he says, the GRC director says, you don't understand all the issues that are going on. And Sam basically looks at him and says, "I'm a black man in the Stars and Stripes." And it is a poignant moment that kind of has been building and building and building through the entire season. We all knew that's where we were going, that we were hinting at this moment all along, especially with the Isaiah Bradley storyline. We knew we were going to get there, and we finally get there. And Sam has a beautiful speech, and it's a great moment for Marvel, and it's a great moment for Sam Wilson, a great moment for Anthony Mackie. I think it will be something that hangs around for a long, long time. We do kind of see him complete what Carly wanted. He gets in front of the GRC and he pleads his case and calls them out and says, "You can do better." And in the end, we find out they are going to try to do better. And it's a great resolution. Now, one of my favorite bits at the very end, we see a slight name change. Instead of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we see the title card change to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Just to say, kind of put a period on it, that this is not the Falcon anymore. He is Captain America. So I'm super happy with how the show went. I thought it was great. It was so well done. The production value of Marvel and Disney Plus is so much higher than we ever saw with the network shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a whole different world of quality. We're seeing movie quality production in 5-hour shows. We basically had a 4 or 5 hour Falcon and the Winter Soldier movie, and it beautifully done, beautifully shot. The CGI is impeccable, and it's just a great experience. I love all the things that Marvel is doing right now, and this show is no exception. So where are we going from here? we've had the Falcon and the Winter Soldiers now wrapped up. We know that Black Widow is coming out soon. But where does this story really take us? We are already hearing Captain America 4 is at least started to be in the works. We have a producer. We don't have a cast yet. We don't have a director yet. So we'll have to see what all that plays into. But here is my guess. With everything that has happened, with all the people who have either died or had issues or are retiring from the Avengers, we're going to have a big gaping hole in the MCU. My guess is we're going to see something to equate to the comic book version of the Thunderbolts, where it's basically a group of bad guys who pretend to be good guys, or are recruited to be good guys, and they may or may not continue to be good guys. So what does that look like for the MCU? I don't have all the answers for you there, but here is my prediction. I think this is where Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is actually going to come into the MCU. At the end of the show, we see her with John Walker. We see them in the governmental offices, that big conference room where they sent John Walker packing, the same conference room where we see them give Sharon Carter her pardon. So somehow Valentina has something to do with the government. Otherwise, why would she get that conference room? Hey, I know it's a government building. Can I just borrow this conference room for a few minutes? So my new superhero can change into his new costume that I made for him. Well, there's got to be some government thing going on there. So we see John Walker walk out as U.S. agent. Fontaine gives him his name, U.S. agent, and U.S. agent is a great character for the Thunderbolts. Baron Zemo does exist. He would be a great character for the Thunderbolts as well. I was actually, one of the reasons I was disappointed that Batroc the Leaper died in the show is he would have been a great fit as well. So we're already seeing some characters that could play into the Thunderbolts. We know that Thunderbolt Ross, the Red Hulk, Thunderbolt Ross exists. He could become the Red Hulk. That could play into Thunderbolts. Just lots of opportunities there. And with the way the MCU likes playing around with things and changing things so that it fits better with their plans, it really makes sense for Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to be the person who instigates this new superhero team that takes the place of the Avengers, but they're not quite as good. I think that's where we're going to go. I would love to hear what you thought of the show. Let us know. Send me a message. Check out ChristianNerdsUnite.com. Check on the contact us and send me a message. You can also go to the Facebook page and send me a message there. Throughout the show, there were some interesting little Easter eggs along the way, and I thought some of them were great. One of the ones that was a little unusual is a random comment from someone saying, isn't Steve Rogers on the moon? And it's an interesting question. Once I started thinking about it, I realized, we don't technically have a MCU canon version of Steve Rogers passing away. We have old Steve Rogers, but we don't have a death of Steve Rogers. We don't have a funeral. We had a Tony Stark funeral. We see him die. We see a funeral. We don't have a Steve Rogers funeral, but we do have a Captain America memorial or museum. It's a little unclear. So is Steve Rogers still alive and living on the moon? don't know what to even do with that. Well, maybe you have some ideas. If you do, let me know. Send me a message. I'd love to hear what you think. Is Steve Rogers on the moon? And if he is, what is he doing and why? Maybe he'll be the new Watcher. So we'll see how that all works out. Well, that's all I have for us today. Hey, don't forget, you can find all of our social links, our online store, and links to our YouTube channel at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. And while you're there, click on the support tab, check out our Patreon. Before you go, I want to leave you with a blessing. Lord Jesus Christ, send us out with confidence in your world, to tell the world of your saving acts, to bring glory to your name. Amen. Hey, if everything goes right, we're going to have our show next week will be on May the 4th. We're going to have a Star Wars episode. We're going to talk about the Bad Batch. That's the plan. And I'm hoping we're going to have a special guest, David Jesse from Tatooine Sons. So you definitely want to join us next week, next Tuesday. Don't forget. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.